So this guy decided to start a food tour business as a side hustle. He's since given the tour to thousands of folks from almost every state in the US. I mean, his TripAdvisor reviews are off the charts. Check them out. And he's not stopping there. With the success of this first food tour in a city of only 200,000 people, he's expanded his business to a smaller touristy town that's about 45 minutes away from us. We actually documented one of these tours 5 years ago when his business first started, and we're going to be testing out the new tour later this month. And so with his food tour success and his knowledge of history, he actually landed a book deal. We're gonna learn about all that and more. Let's talk with Chris and let's see where his business is headed. Enjoy. All right, sweet. We're recording. Chris Andrews, what's up, my man? I got you on here because you are a buddy of mine. We live in the same area, the same city, and you launched a food tour business. And the name of that is?
Yeah, Bienville Bites Food Tour.
Bienville Bites Food
Mobile,
Tour.
Alabama.
And what?
In Mobile, Alabama.
In Mobile, Alabama. Yeah. In LA, for all the people that want to know, we're in that lower Alabama area. So, okay, why in the world did you do that? Like where did you get the idea from? What made you want to do it? Start there, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the idea, there's food tours all around the country, all around the world. And primarily, food tours are found primarily in large cities. You got to have a downtown area. This, of course, got good restaurants and history and all that. A friend of mine took a food tour in Savannah, Georgia, and came back home and was talking about the experience they had, and went to the different restaurants and sampled a dish at each restaurant they went to, and a tour guide led the tour and talked about the history of the city, and they went by these different landmarks and historical places in the city of Savannah, and just the entire time I was thinking, man, like, why don't we have anything like this in Mobile? And I've always been real interested in tours and tourism, and it was about that time around 2016, 2017. Like I said, I was real interested in that. I've always been a big history buff.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was if you remember around that time in Mobile, tourism was really on a big jump right then. And so I thought, hey, this is the perfect time. Let's capitalize on this. But of course, I didn't have any business experience or anything like that. So I was completely blind going into this thing originally. So that's when I was kind of, looking online at how to start a business, how to start a food tour. And I come across this guy that's in Chicago, Illinois. And he actually at the time was, helping people start food tours. It's a little course that you can take called Food Tour Pros.
So that is what you did when you wanted to get started. You Googled how you basically were Googling how to find the food.
100%.
Okay, cool, cool. That's great because I'm gonna I intend to write a piece of content and an article about that as well. So I mean that's good. That's awesome. Okay, and so you found the guy in Chicago?
Yeah, found him on Chicago. Found him on Google, and so kind of researched it a little bit and reached out to him. Of course, did the free 30-minute call, kind of consultation kind of thing, and so anyway, it ended up being a fit, and I thought, man, this is the guy that I think can help us start this food tour here in Mobile, and so I reached out to him, like I said. Ended up going to Chicago, took his tour, and did some training with him. Did a lot of business coaching with him for the first year of our business, and he really was, pretty instrumental in helping us get started.
That's awesome, man. I was about to ask, what was it that he offered? So it was consulting, also a course, or what was it that he offered specifically?
Yeah, the biggest thing was, so your first experience is you go to Chicago and you get like a 2-day training with him, 2 full days of training.
Cool.
And he goes through all the details of everything from how to start a business to how to start a food tour. And then at the very end, the 3rd day, you actually take his food tour. And so that was, after you've, like I said, you've kind of talked about all these different aspects of what a food tour business entails, then you actually get to take one, and take his tour. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And then following that, that's when you get the monthly coaching.
Okay. That is, man, so what that person has put together is pretty in depth. It also seems kind of hardcore, like for people in what he offered, for people to do it, they had to go to Chicago. Is that right?
And I think that was something he kind of hit on, that, you got to be really serious about doing this. There was a guy in my class from China.
Wow.
And,
okay.
He flew there from Beijing.
Wow.
And he was going to start a food tour in Beijing. In the class I was in there with, it was only about 6 of us. But you had guy from Philadelphia and New Mexico, all these different cities from around the world. But I have to say, I'm the only one that I think that really started a food tour out of the entire class that we were in. I don't know
Really?
about the guy in China. I hadn't been able to keep up with him.
Okay. So the other folks never launched
Well,
their business
yeah, they
necessarily.
never flourished. A couple of them never got off the ground for whatever reason. A couple of them did, but then man, COVID really kind of messed up the entire,
Yeah.
not just food tours, but the entire tourism
Y-
industry.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the time that yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of like a weird skewed data probably from the people that
Yeah,
you went
for
with.
sure, no doubt
Um,
about it.
But and so I understand your food tour now. Fast forward to today, and you've had like a people from like a dozen countries, almost all 50 states to take the food tour in LA and
Yeah.
Lower Alabama in the Mobile area. That's incredible, man. So like, congrats on that. Who are you missing? What states are we missing? Do you know?
Well, I have to. I think Alaska is for sure one.
Okay.
I don't think we've had anybody from Montana,
Okay, you got
and
everyone hearing this. Our Alaskan friends, when you come down to get warm, yeah,
and one of the
come do a food
Dakotas.
tour.
It's either North Dakota or South Dakota.
Okay, okay. Yes, you're not missing many, man. You almost
Yeah,
have the whole puzzle. But okay,
yeah,
so rewind back to when you started though, in the very beginning. And by the way, you're now doing this full time, right? Like
yeah. That's right.
as of 2023, this is your full-time business, but when you launched it as I mean, I guess you call it a part-time business or a side hustle or whatever, because you had a full-time job and you were doing this like you were building out the food tour business, right?
That's right. Yeah, I had a full time job when I started the tour, and I was working full time at a steel mill, and I had no intention of all right, I'm going to start a business and get out of this steel mill. Like that was not my intention at all. My intention was really to just do this on the weekend and kind of be do this as a hobby and
Uh-huh.
we'll see where it goes. But no, originally I had no intention of ever doing this full time.
Interesting. Okay, okay. So that wasn't even your goal. You're just like, hey,
No,
hey, part-time business. It'll be fun. This is a
yeah,
need. This will fill a void in the city, which I totally agree with you that it totally fills a void. Okay, well then, what was the shift? Were you just like, man, the demand's there? I think we can do this full time, or like what changed your what changed for you?
I think the biggest thing was, well, entrepreneurship is a funny thing.
Oh,
When
I
you get a
agree.
little taste of it, man, you just want to go all in. And I think that was something that happened to me a couple of, a year or so in. You start to get a little taste of that freedom, and and then of course the possibility was there of, man, one day if we scaled this thing, I could quit the steel. I don't want to work at the steel mill the next 30 years of my life.
Got it. Got it.
And so I think the entrepreneurship bug kind of hit me, a year or two in, and I got a family, and I'd much rather be at home on the weekends, spending time with my kids, and going to their soccer games and baseball games, than I would be at that steel mill for sure. So, say
That's
a year or two in is when kind of realized, man, this is that would be my dream, would be to quit. And then in 2021, I quit working at the steel mill, went full time, and I hadn't had to go back since.
Yeah, right, yeah. So far, so good. It's funny.
Yeah,
Like in the entrepreneurship world, like obviously I'm with you, and there's been so many times. I mean, just realistic, man. Just being real. So many times that my wife and I, Mandy, Mandy, my wife, we've been like, dude, should we just stop all this stuff and just go get a job and just let
yeah.
someone else tell us what to do, and all that. But like, I
There's
don't
been
know, man.
several months where I'm like, man, I might better polish up the resume
Yep.
and
It,
see where it goes.
yeah, it's
It's
tough, man.
not easy.
It's tough. Yeah, 100% agree. Like it's not easy. So for anyone listening, it's like, oh, this is so fun and fluffy. Like, nah, not like not necessarily, but it is rewarding, obviously. And every time I've asked myself that question or I've been kind of against the wall, I've figured like, okay, like what are actions I can take that just like will move me forward and like if it's maybe it's a revenue thing, like okay, what's the quickest way I can get to like generating some revenue, and then because honestly, if you go and you dust off resume and you start and you go do that, it just I mean, obviously your time is waxed at that point, right?
That's right.
You can't grow what you're trying to grow. And so I'm just like, all right, man, you just got to put the smartest hours possible into what you're doing and keep pushing forward and keep growing. So you're now in two cities, right? Are you
That's right.
still
Yeah, we expanded our tour
yeah.
from Mobile. We expanded over to Fairhope, Alabama, which is across Mobile Bay. And there's a lot of tourists are visiting Fairhope, and Fairhope's growing. There's several boutique hotels there, and a great downtown area, great restaurant scene there. So it was just kind of a natural fit. We had always kind of eyed, my wife and I, when I say we always kind of eyed Fairhope as, a place that, man, that a food tour would do well there. And I mentioned earlier that, you found food tours in a lot of large cities, but right now you're going to find a lot of them in small towns as well. And Fairhope is one of those small towns that can absolutely sustain a food tour. And so we started that tour in 2020, that in November of that year, and so it's been growing, man. It's been great, and the food scene in Fairhope is it's legit.
Is it better than Mobile's?
I can't tell you that.
Just kidding.
The food scene, no, it's not as big as Mobile.
Okay.
The food scene in general, no.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the food tour, the restaurants on that food tour they're incredible. They're incredible. They're as good as some of the restaurants we have in Mobile for sure.
Got it. Okay, but how do you start one? But if I'm, and you also mentioned small towns as well, so which is an interesting piece, because you're saying like, hey, I think there's potential for these for small town. Now, the small towns, I assume it can't just be like a small town that's a small town, but it probably needs to be a small town that's like destination, right? Like Fairhope's kind of a destination. Is that right?
Yeah, it's gotta be a small town with a destination. So I mean, if you've got a downtown area, if you've got over a dozen, maybe 20 restaurants, I think that's a good fit for a food tour. All right there in a walking distance area.
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, you got to have something that's attracting people to come to that city as well.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, and I think we've talked about this before. It's probably a good time to bring this up. Does the city or town have to have tourism? Is it a tourism driven thing? Is it a local driven thing? And I know you have some stats, and you talk to other people that kind of have maybe different stats than what you have, but like, what's your take on that? Does it need to be does it have to be a place where it's tourism driven for people?
Place is tourism driven for sure.
Yeah.
It needs to be. Now we've kind of hit on something in Mobile that is a little different. I don't think Mobile is a big tourism city right now. And so we've tapped into a local market here in Mobile.
Yeah.
And I feel like Mobile is a little unique in that situation, where you've got a large population here in our area that are looking for things to do. We've got so much of our population as well that they don't come downtown to eat at all the restaurants as frequently as, now, like I said, you might think that they do, and our restaurants are packed. But there's still a large amount of people in our metropolitan area, whether that's in, North Mobile, West Mobile, South Mobile, that they're not as familiar with the restaurants downtown. And so a lot of those come and they take our tour, and their eyes are really open to the restaurant scene. They're really open to, wow, I haven't been downtown in 10 years. I didn't realize that it was this clean, or I didn't realize that it was safe, or, I didn't realize all this stuff was going on down here. The revitalization of buildings and, the parks and stuff. So we've really kind of tapped into that for sure, our local market. And I'd say primarily for Beautiful Bites, our tour is primarily locals. I'd say it's about 60 to 70% locals, which is unheard of in the tourism industry. It's unheard of in the food tourism industry as well. And even our tour in Fairhope, it's 80% tourist. And so that's kind of the trend. That's the normal trend.
Got it. Okay. So normal trend, 80%, high percentage tourist. Yet in Mobile's, the one that you primarily started, much more than half at least, you said 60 or 70% is locals.
Yeah, that's right.
That's so amazing, man. So this is like crazy, but it almost makes me think like.
So after 15 years of using softwares and tools to run our business, there's a few that we've just really fallen in love with. We're obsessed with Beehive for running our email newsletter. It's fast, it's fun, and it saved us thousands of dollars when we switched to it. WPX is our website host. They're like our people. They're basically another support staff. They answer their support chat in less than 30 seconds. It's like having a developer sit right beside you. Anytime I need something, I just ping them. Fiverr is a nice resource for getting additional help for our remote team. For video editing, we've now been using Descript for over a year. In the press of a button, we can remove vocal fillers and cut out space gaps out of the video. And it's also really good for creating short clips out of longer form videos. Now, we work with folks all around the world on our team. PayPal's okay, but so expensive. We're pretty obsessed with Wise. Once we found that, and 100% of our remote team, we've now switched them to Wise, and they love it better than PayPal or any other form of payment that we've been using to send money. Now, a note, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, but I could be. hit me up. But I do work with all of them on a referral basis, which means I make a commission if you use my links in order to use their service. So for that, I appreciate you. Back to the show.
Man, the local restaurants almost need to pay you to be like a chosen restaurant on the tour. I know it sounds crazy, and I'm assuming. Let me go ahead and tell you why I think that. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but my thought is this: if there was a way to track repeat business, like people that go on a tour, test all these restaurants, and then they're like, oh wow, these are amazing, and then come back and bring their families to eat at those restaurants,
Yeah.
where you just mentioned, and I think you're totally right, man, that these people have never been to these restaurants. They live in they don't even come to this part of town, like the downtown area. This is something that brings them down there. You've got this like crazy valuable thing. Okay, so maybe that's kind of a crazy idea, but
No, I had these conversations every week. I just had a conversation Sunday about a guy after church. He told me he came on a tour a few weeks ago. We're going back to Squid Ink, man. We love that burger so much. We're going to take the family down to Squid Ink. And they did. They went and he took the family after church to Squid Ink. And that's just an example of one person that I talked to a couple of days ago, right? I mean, like I said, I had these conversations all the time with people who are opened up their eyes, from the tour. Man, I didn't realize the wings at Moe's Barbecue are so good,
yeah.
And like I said, that's just a couple of the examples, but I have these conversations all the time.
That's crazy. At a minimum, I guess that would help you in your negotiations, if you will, with restaurants
sure.
or whatever,
is, yeah.
Right? Okay, so
it's hard to measure though. In the grand scheme, it is hard to measure.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely tough to measure. Maybe a couple of testimonials or something, from those people that you could show to the restaurants if you need to. Be like, hey, I just want you to know, look at this repeat business. It's coming back to you. All right, so how does it actually, like, the mechanics, just in a big, broad, overarching view of like how it works? I'm assuming like you line up restaurants. Say it's how many are on an average tour?
You're gonna have at least 5 restaurants are on an average tour. That's a 3-hour tour.
Okay, so 5 restaurants, 3-hour tour, and the website that I threw up here earlier was, I know we were talking about Fairhope, but I threw up Beanville Bites restaurant. So you have these tours, and they range. So it's like you have different ones, but like you have some themed ones that may be more expensive. And the point of this conversation isn't to like talk about like pricing and specifics, although we can get into that. But I see you've got like $60, $70, $150, $75. So it's like there's a range depending on what you're doing. But I think your ones in the $60, $70 range are like the like consistent tours with like that 5 or ballpark, right? Is that correct?
At this screen right here, you see the Lodos Stroll Tour. That's the tour that we started with. We started that tour from the very beginning, and we've been giving that tour every Friday and Saturday throughout the year. And so that tour will always be on the calendar, and that is like I said, it says signature food tour Mobile. So you're looking at when you take that tour, you're going to have fried green tomatoes from Ruby Slipper. You're going to go to Squid Ink, and you're going to get peanuts from the A&M Peanut Shop, Three Georges. That's a place that's been in downtown Mobile for over 100 years. Winsel's Oyster House. You can't go to Mobile and not have some oysters. Winsel's Oyster House has been around since 1938. You're going to have beignets from Mobay Beignets. So I mean, it is the signature tour that we have, and that's where, like I said, we're going to have a lot of tourists on that tour for sure. But that's also Friday and Saturday. It's a very busy time as well. And so we do get a lot of locals that take that tour. The Old Mobile Evening Tour, now that's a tour that we do that on Thursday night. And the restaurants on that tour, I would be very, I'll just say it. Look, I don't think there's another food tour in the country that has better restaurants than those right there. You're going to start off at Dolphins, which is a fine dining restaurant in Mobile on the 34th floor of one of our buildings. And it's the most incredible view at a restaurant you'll probably ever have. And then we go to La Floriditas, which is a Cuban speakeasy. Really fun vibe there. Post. And we go to the Cheese Cottage, which is an incredible stop. And then we end at 5 with the white chocolate bread pudding that you see pictured there over the Old Mobile evening picture. So the food and the restaurant lineup on that tour is top notch. And so we do that tour on Thursday night.
Yeah. Sell me.
The restaurants aren't as busy. So that's another, aspect of the tour as well. Right. We're going to these restaurants when they're not as busy. So that tour, Old Mobile evening, right? So we can't do that on a Friday night. That would be when our demand is the highest, but that's also when the restaurant demand is the highest as well. So you're not going to get into Dolphins on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Get into some of these places like the Cheese Cottage. There's very limited seating there, so you're not getting in there on a Friday night. So that's another aspect of the business too that you have to consider.
Yeah, exactly. So just, I guess, going back to my thought earlier, like the big just the big idea of the food tours, you're going to restaurants and like you're going to partner with them. You arrange some sort of, I assume some sort of pricing or something structure or
Yep,
whatever, and then you sell tickets to a tour, and then obviously you make a spread between what your cost is and the tour itself, the ticket price, and you have group. Do the groups max out? I'm assuming you have a max number of people that you can
yep.
take into
Maximum
a.
number is 16. That's the
Okay,
maximum number on those tours that are open to the public. Now,
yeah,
every now and then we'll get some corporate groups or something like that they have a large amount of people, and we can accommodate to that. But as far as like the public tours that are opening year round, those are maxed at 16.
yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned the good point about the time of day. Yeah, like you're in a partnership with the restaurant, so obviously you have to book in a not necessarily completely the slow dead hours, but it can't be peak hours because that just can't work because they're already going to be at full capacity or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense, man. All right, what does your team look like? I feel like in the beginning, obviously it was just you, and I think your lovely wife was a part of helping you as well. But like, what did your team look like, and what does it look like now? And then like, how have you found these people to help you with these tours, man? Like, how has all that happened?
When the first year and a half of our tour, it was me and my wife Lainey. Yeah, and we give every single tour. We started out, again, I was working at the steel mill, so I would work a lot of weekends up there. If I was working the weekends, she would do those tours primarily. There were some times where I would get off working 6 a.m. in the morning, and I would sleep for a couple of hours and give a tour at 11:30 a.m. I've done that a few times.
Wow.
That was those were brutal,
How are
but
how are your reviews on those tours?
hey, you do what you got to do, man. You
Amen,
do it.
dude. Amen. I'm
Yeah.
with you.
So first year and a half, it was Mardi Gras of one year, and man, we were given like 3 tours a day, me and Laney both, and we were dead. When we got kids at home, and we were just like after Mardi Gras was over, we were like, all right, we got to find some tour guides to help us with this. So we reached out to, I think originally, I think we did really small, just some social media posts, reaching out on Facebook. Hey, we're looking for some tour guides. So we got some applicants there, and we were lucky enough to find some people who had given tours before in Mobile. Some couple of them had worked for the duck boats that were here in Mobile, giving
Nice.
tours. So we got somebody there. We also do haunted tours in the fall, and so one aspect of our haunted tours is we have actors and actresses that play different parts. So throughout the year. And one of our tour guides was actually one of our actresses. She was one of the actresses, and she did such a great job. When I asked her after the haunted season was over, I was like, "Hey, would you be interested in being a tour guide?" Yeah, I would. So we brought her on. That's Catherine, and she's been with us, for a while now.
Dude, I
Daniette's
almost
been with us for 5 years now. So
I almost forgot that I did that. Like, I'm literally recording this with you right
and
now, and I'm like, I was a part of your tour
yes, Brooks was an actor for us.
at
Played the
the
part of Charles
Boynton
Boynton.
Oak.
Yep.
At the Boynton Oak, man. If anyone was there, this is like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
There's a video out there somewhere, I'm
Yeah.
sure,
Someone
of you, and we're gonna have
someone
to find it.
someone find it and post it. Yeah, man. So I got sidetracked there. Sorry about that. My brain was like, whoa, I was a part of this, man.
But we've
Um,
got a team of 7 tour guides in Mobile right
oh,
now.
that's
We've got two
awesome.
tour guides in Mobile, 2 tour guides in Fairhope, 7 in Mobile, and we primarily found them through Facebook. We've primarily found them through our email marketing as well. So we have our email list, and the last time we were looking for some tour guides, I sent out an email saying, hey, and that was to the people who had been on our tour before, and so I knew that they were passionate about what we do, and that way we're not reaching out beyond people who were familiar with our tour,
Yep.
and that worked out really well. We found some great tour guides from that, and we got a great group now.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's been a little bit of a transition for me too, as well. Whereas I'm not giving as many tours as I used to. Now I'm really in communication with our tour guides and hiring great tour guides. There was one of our tour guides is Lee, and I met Lee on our tour. He took our tour, our Mardi Gras tour that we'd give, what's 5 years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago, and we just built a relationship. And I'd see him downtown a lot, and he'd come up to me and was like, "Hey man, if you're ever interested in if you ever need a tour guide, let me know." And he's a big people person and loves people, so loves Mobile, and he's one of our best tour guides. He's awesome.
That's great, man. I didn't realize you had seven guides and a couple over there. Okay, how tough has that been? Have you churned it through some? Like, obviously there's some sort of trial period. Like, how do you determine that a guide's good and they're going to be like, and you're like comfortable letting them actually give a tour? I
Yeah.
mean, do they do some with you, or like how does that work, or how did you do that?
The originally, so you have to take the tour. That's the first
Yeah,
criteria.
totally
Take
makes
the
sense.
tour, put yourself in the tour guide's shoes. Can you see yourself doing this? Well, I guess actually the first thing would be, we actually require you to submit a video to become a tour guide.
Smart.
And so you have to submit a video of yourself, and that's describing your passion and how you're passionate about Mobile. So we get some real creativity there, and so that's the first step. Then take the tour, and really you're just kind of shadowing the tour guide that's leading the tour for a few weeks. And we have a script that I've written, but of course that script is that's not something that you memorize at all. That's for you to take, and you add your personality to that script. You add your stories and your own background, and you add that to that script.
Yep.
But no, I feel like my belief is like as long as you love people and you're passionate about Mobile, we can train you to be a great tour guide.
Got you.
And the reviews have shown that too.
Got you. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm happy for you guys. That's where it sounds like, but it also sounds like you've created a really like smart system for around like bringing the right people on board, right? The video seems like a great idea. Obviously, them requiring them to go on a tour to like, hey, can you see yourself doing this? Then that script for them to understand the basics of like the framework of the tour, and then them being able to add their own flavor to that. All that's really, it sounds like you've developed a really good system, man. So that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. Do you feel like you need any sort, like, people, if they wanted to launch one, do they need any sort of like backing from a city or a community, or is it kind of like, hey, do you just see a like a need like in the tourist, like, hey, this is missing in my city, and just do it? Like, is there anything that you think people need from a area, or not necessarily?
I don't think so. I mean, to have a successful tour, I think you do need a loyal following from your locals to an extent to have a very successful tour. Because what that's gonna do is if you have a loyal following from your locals, of course they're gonna leave you if you can encourage them to leave reviews, and that's gonna help grow your audience. But the biggest thing from that is gonna be they're gonna spread the word. They're going to spread the word. Hopefully, they're going to go on Facebook or their Instagram and talk about what they did this weekend. It's going to create a little FOMO,
Yep.
from their following, their friends, and so their friends are going to want to do it. Another thing too with that, I think you're going to find that when people have out of town guests, you're always going to have somebody from out of town. You need to entertain them, and the food tour is a great way to entertain out of town guests, and so that's going to really help you along the way if you can engage your locals. But I don't think it's a requirement. I don't think you have to. I think there's still enough. There's a large population of people who are going to take your food tour tourists no matter what.
Yep.
But I think if you really want to go next level, I think you do have to engage the locals.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. If you were gonna rewind back, like knowing what you know now, what do you think you might do differently had you had the knowledge that you now have, like when you launched?
Ooh, I think I would probably. Well, I think I would have probably, man, quit my job sooner.
Really? Okay. Okay.
I
That's
think
a
I
cool
would have
answer.
taken the jump sooner. Really, I feel like there was a couple of years there where things were kind of stagnant a little bit because I was so limited. I was working full time.
Yeah.
My wife Lainey's working as
Yep.
well, and so there was a few years there, especially before COVID, where I feel like we could have probably got the ball rolling a little bit sooner, and it would have been great to have a little bit more momentum going into COVID.
Got it. Got it. And obviously, no way for you to know that, or that was going to be an effect on on the industry as a whole, really, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, I hear
yeah,
you.
and well, and now actually thinking about that, I'm super glad that I had a job during COVID, and I had a full time job during that time. So
Yeah.
I think I might just erase what I just said,
I no,
just based on that right there.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, and really your answer was kind of like an unforeseen anyway. Like, because that the COVID was the kind of
Yeah,
the variable,
yeah, COVID changed everything.
yeah. Okay, you mentioned really cool. Like, and you may not have the details on this yet, but before we hit record, you mentioned that like you're going to create. I think if it's cool to just mention this, you're going
Yeah,
to create a course for people that literally want to do this.
yeah.
Which is
The plan is now to take what I've given. Like I mentioned, the food tour pros, the guy in Chicago, he doesn't do that anymore. And so
Really?
there's not a resource really out there for anyone. If you Googled how to start a food tour right now, you're not going to come up with anything.
Are
And
you
so
serious?
there's a
There's not really courses or anything, really?
no, there's nothing really out there. There's a few cheap courses out there I think
Sure,
you could probably take, but
sure.
nothing of any really of real value. And so that's kind of what I'm really focusing on right now is getting
Yeah,
started. And it's going to be called Food Tour Founders, and
love
so
it.
it'll be a course, and there'll be different tiers to it. So you could have one tier where it's just business coaching to help get you started. Is it's tough. There's if you're thinking about starting a food tour, man, there's a lot of hurdles and a lot of obstacles that if you're going into it blind, you're going to struggle with. So you need help doing this. You're
Yeah.
going to need help. And then there's another tier I think that'll be where hey, I'm going to come take your tour. And wherever your city is, I'm going to come and I'm going to come take it. I'm going to critique it, and so that'll be.
Oh, nice. That'd
I
be
don't have
cool.
a time frame for when that's going to be launched, but I'd hope to have it going at least by 2024.
That's awesome, man. Well, if I can give you feedback or help, let me know. And if I can like license your course or something and try to sell it, or you have an affiliate program or something,
Oh yeah, we're
put
definitely
me
going to have that.
put me at the top of your list.
You'll
Well,
find it on Destroy the Box for sure.
there you go. There we go. Yeah, I want to work a deal with you, man, because I really think, obviously my brand's all about like trying to allow people to create additional incomes or like get rid of their 9 to 5 and like grow their hustle. And like I also have this view of I'm not anti school or education or university. Obviously, I'm not anti education, but I'm not anti university or school. But I'm like, it's going through a disruption. Things are changing. And I don't know, I just want to be a part of it. And I'm like, man, there's so many different ways for people to learn and mold and like get ideas and gain traction. And I don't know, like for me, that's what Destroy the Box. And I've never even talked about that actually, like Destroy the Box University. I mean, if people want to go to that, there's 2 courses on there right now. But what I envision is like literally 100 courses on there one day where I partner with people and bring courses onto there. So yeah, hopefully we can ink a deal, man. That'd be great. And if not, I'm your number one supporter. I'll help you promote or whatever. So
Oh, I know you are.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love that was already on your plate. I love that was already in your mind to do. I love that, man. I love that
Well, no,
about you.
I'm
That's
with you.
great.
I have the same kind of philosophy as you. Like, man, the world is changing, and the days of working 9 to 5 jobs and working at the steel mill for 30 years. Like, man, I mean, I really feel like those days are. I'm not gonna say they're over, but they're. I don't know. I don't know what the world's gonna look like. 20 years from now. But I got a feeling that a lot of people aren't going to be working 9 to 5 jobs, and they're not going to be working at steel mills and manufacturing facilities and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
you need to you need to find a way to be your own boss. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, yeah, I mean the world's definitely gonna look different, and obviously there's gonna be positions and work and like university hopefully becomes like kind of what it was like. I consider university kind of as like the trade school for like for an attorney or for a doctor or for an engineer. Like that is the trade school for that. Or if you
100%.
want to do something different, go to a different trade school. If you want to be
Yeah.
if you want to be an entrepreneur, cool, go. I don't know, go online and get education. There's just there's just different ways, man. So I think it's all good, and I think you're doing your part by creating that course. I'm gonna do my part, and we're gonna help. Whoever has an open ear that wants to seek it out is gonna find these things, and it'll be beneficial for everybody. So
Yeah, I think that's one thing about a food tour. Like you start a food tour, you're not gonna be wealthy. You're not gonna have you're not gonna be wealthy from starting a food tour. But no, if it's a great job for someone who is looking for something. If you want, if you want to have a side hustle, you can do it. If you want to start a business and produce some income, I think you can do that too. So I think the biggest thing though is it's rewarding and it's fun. You get to,
yeah,
like I said, we talk about meeting people from all over the world and telling stories, and our big mission is we want to grow Mobile, right? I mean that's our big picture mission really, is to grow the city. And we've had people come on our tour. This is the only thing they do while they're in Mobile, so there's a lot of big responsibility in that as well.
yep, yep.
And so, but big picture, you get a lot of fulfillment out of owning a food tour business.
That's a good mindset, man. I think the person with your mindset, right? So it's a great business for someone with the right personality and the right passion, and like it probably helps if they have the passion for, like you said, for their city and their community. Like you having that overarching mission of trying to like grow the area that like a tourist that comes, you are their first impression of the community or of the city. Those are big shoes, man. Those are big shoes to fill. And so I'm glad to have you in those shoes and not me having to do that. So that's good. I'm glad you're doing that. All right. Is there something like where you've chatted with someone on some sort of interview or whatever? Is there something you wish that someone would ask you, but they don't? If there is, like, now's your chance, man. I'm gonna let you just
Everybody
free
always
flow.
asks me, what's your favorite dish or what's your favorite restaurant, and like, man, I can't tell you my
I know
favorite.
that's a tough one. You're like, I can't drop favorite restaurants in public. Like, I can't say that, right?
But as far as business goes, a lot of the questions you've asked me, haven't had a lot of people ask. I haven't been in a lot of interviews with when people want to talk about the food tour business itself. So
It's different, huh?
yeah, I like this. I mean, I think this is good. This is good, and it's kind of helped open my eyes to exactly what we're doing.
Love it. All right, well, that's cool. All right, well, what's the best place if people want to just connect with you and like link up or whatever, or find you online? Like, how would you want people to find you?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'd say Facebook. You can find me there. That's my personal page. That's a good place to start. I'll always accept somebody's friend request on Facebook and LinkedIn. I kind of share a little bit. I'm not as active as I probably should be on there, but the big stuff you can find me there on LinkedIn. But really, if you want to keep up with our tours, the Enville Bites Food Tour, Facebook, Instagram, Taste of Fairhope, Facebook and Instagram. We're always posting up there. All the things that we got going on. And I also started a podcast called the Port City Plate Podcast.
Yes.
So, check that out on iTunes and everywhere you listen to podcasts. And those are good stuff too, as far as, talk a lot of food and we talk a lot of history. So that's good stuff too.
On the podcast on that front, because that's actually, that's an interesting thing. Obviously, if someone wants to start a food tour, that might be a great thing for them to look into, is like as a part of their branding to have a podcast. So you've been doing that for maybe like over a year or what?
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah.
What's your take on it after a year? Just kind of like, what are your thoughts? Is it worth all the energy and effort? Do you like what it's doing? Like what is it doing for you? Like what are your what's your take?
It's tough. It's very hard. It was hard to get started. I probably had the idea for a year, and so it was. I'm an executor, so it's easy for me to execute. If you're not an executor, it's going to be really, really tough because if you're your own worst critique, if you're your own worst enemy, if you're going to have a hard time listening to yourself on an audio and just all the things that go in with that. But man, I've really enjoyed it. I've made connections with people that I don't think I would have probably made connections with before. I've met people even in the restaurant industry that I didn't know. I think there's something when you ask somebody to be on their podcast, they're going to say yes. So you've got that in your. Yep. You've got that going for you if you do start a podcast, no matter what your listenership is. If you've got 10 people that are listening, if somebody asks you to be on their podcast, they're going to say yes. So that's a big advantage for you. And I think one thing that also helped me too, you're like I said, your listenership and your viewers are going to be very small in the beginning. That there's a guy that we know, Bradley Flowers. He was encouraging me at the beginning. Like, man, think about it. Yeah, you've only got 50 listeners, but man, what if you were giving a talk and you said you were going to go, give a talk on whatever your talk is about, and you had 50 people show up? That is a huge room full of people. And so don't be discouraged about having 50 people to listen to your show. That's a lot of people. And think about that 50 people and how impactful it can be. But I think for me personally, like I talked to a guy last week. He listened to the show. It was about a local sausage company here in Mobile called Hall Sausage. We talked to her, and they talked about it. Well, he was talking about how he went to the store and bought some Hall sausage, and it brought back a lot of memories. His dad cooked Hall sausage when they were growing up, and so like it brought back a lot of memories for him. So just hearing kind of testimonials like that definitely keep me motivated to do it. And I guess I can go ahead and tell you a secret too. We because I don't know when this is going to air, but we won the Nappy Award for the best local podcast this year.
Nice,
so
nice,
super
man.
Excited about that, and so yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. I don't know if it's really grown my business. The podcast is presented by the Enville Bites Food Tour.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few people that I've talked to have been on the tour because of they heard about it through the podcast. So I don't know if you're looking for like a financial return on investment. I don't think 1 year in it's been that.
Agreed.
But we'll see where it goes long term.
Yeah, the things that you said about it though, yeah, I'm totally with you. I think a podcast as a business model or like a revenue stream, I think it has to be really big, right? Like, like a lot of listeners or such a niche like target that you may have some sort of sponsor advertiser that's like, oh my gosh, I want to
Yeah,
reach those 50 crazy weird people that you're, whatever, that it really fits them. But your example of imagining the listeners in a room is a really cool one. That's a really cool analogy because, yeah, it's very easy to get caught up in like, TikTok people with multi-million channels or even on YouTube, right? Like giant YouTube channels. So for example, like my YouTube channel just crossed 3,000 subscribers. It took forever to get there. And it's like a baby channel. I'm not even in. So if I cross 10,000 subs, I'll apparently be in like the top 10% of like all channels worldwide. But it's crazy to think about that. That like if you just get to 10,000 subs, you're in like the top 10% or whatever. But
that's right.
when you convert those, exactly what you just did, I just did that in my head. When you convert those people to like, man, a room of 3,000 people that are like, yeah, I'll listen to you, or like I'm willing to see what you have going on, or like follow you, or yeah, 3,000 people in a room is a lot of folks,
Oh
man.
yeah,
So
that's an arena. That's an arena full of people that you've got following you and you listening to them. Could you imagine if you went to the Sanger Theater and you sold it out? That'd be your subscribers right now.
thanks, man. Thanks, man. I just sold out.
You're on the stage at the Sanger.
I just sold out the Sanger Theater,
You
man.
just sold it out.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. All right, well, Chris, man, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for connecting with me. Stick around for a second. Let's chat. Have a few
Yeah.
more words. And everyone that's watching this, watch this next video, this next interview. Hope you'll enjoy it. Talk to y'all soon.